The Bitcoin halving is just around the corner, about 3 months away, and Bitcoin is looking very bullish here on the weekly chart. Since the start of 2023, since the bull run began, Bitcoin has never closed a weekly above the $44,000 level. And that is the price that we're getting above today. Looking at these weekly candles up close, you can see that the highest weekly candle close was just below 44,000. We are now in a position to potentially close a weekly above the $44,000 level, giving us the highest weekly candle close of this cycle thus far. And if we get that close with continuation, this could usher in a massive short squeeze of this candle right here. All of the short positions inside of that wick would be considered trapped liquidity if we started to build back up on this weekly trend. Getting above this wick high could usher in a massive push towards 60,000. And I actually made a video dedicated to that specific breakdown of the trapped liquidity with the $60,000 setup, which I will post above here. But because I already made a video on that, I want to discuss a few other things in today's video. Now, when it comes to crypto and Bitcoin and these high-risk speculative markets such as Bitcoin and crypto, narratives play a very important role. And in June of 2023, we had the BlackRock ETF application, and that played an instrumental role in the bullish trend that we are now in. It created a lot of anticipation. And the anticipation of an event has a much bigger effect than the event itself, right? We had a lot more upside leading into the ETF approval than the approval itself. And so the same thing goes for the Bitcoin halving. And you can actually look back in history and see that this is something that happens time and time again. Looking at the long-term Bitcoin chart, every time we have a halving event, the price trends into the halving on a straight up trend line, and then begins to shift into a parabolic trend. Same thing with 2016, trending up, and then after the halving, we shift into a parabolic trend. 2020, same thing, uptrend line, shift into a parabolic trend. And right now, it is no different. There is nothing telling me that there's anything wrong, or there's no reason for me to not think that we're just going to do what we've been doing in these past cycles. And the reason why this keeps happening in such a predictable, almost like a copy-paste format, is because Satoshi was clever enough to launch Bitcoin in a way that would have it line up with the US election cycle. So every time there's a halving event, we have the election and inauguration taking place in and around the halving year. And after that, the stock market goes soaring to the upside, usually every election year. You can see the 2012 halving right on the election, 2016 halving right around the election, 2020 halving right before the election. And it's no different, guys. We're entering that next election cycle with the halving event, and the stock market is at new all-time highs. It all just lines up. And I think Satoshi did that on purpose. Quite honestly, every time uptrend before the halving into the election, and that's what we're doing right now. Uptrend into the halving before the election. As long as the general market, stock market participants, crypto market participants, as long as people can predict the Fed's behavior, markets usually remain somewhat stable or trend up. Even with rising rates, falling rates, doesn't really matter. As long as the Fed is predictable, there's no underlying issues with the economy, well, I have no reason to believe that we're not going to go parabolic. Maybe we have a pre-halving pump with that anticipation, like we talked about the ETF, with the anticipation leading into it. The anticipation in the halving is likely going to usher in a lot of support. We may have a post-halving downtrend, but ultimately leading into that post-halving parabola that we usually get every single time. And the stock market being at all-time highs has been a past requirement for this parabolic trend to take place. And the importance of the halving is that miners are receiving half the amount of Bitcoin. Miners are the biggest sellers in the market. So if they're getting half the amount of Bitcoin, they have half the amount of Bitcoin to sell onto the market. Well, that allows for price appreciation. Also, miners have an incentive to allow the price to appreciate so that their mining rewards are worth more. And this is all just perfectly lining up. There's no reason for me to think that we're not going to see a major uptrend. And what you see on the screen here, this profit end zone, is from my indicator that I released a few months ago called Bitcoin Halving Cycle Profit, free to use on TradingView. I removed a bunch of the features on it so that it just shows the halving and the profit end zone. And what we can see is that after every halving, so far, every single halving, 80 weeks later, is the area where the profitability ends, where you want to be out of the market. 2016 halving, 80 weeks after that halving, the profit zone ends. Bear market comes in. 2020 halving, 80 weeks later, it's the top. You want to get out of the market. And that was the discovery I made. And that is what this indicator is showing you, Bitcoin halving cycle profit. And so now halving in April, 80 weeks later brings us to October of 2025. And that's where we could be, making sure that we're exiting the market fully because a bear market is likely to come. There is always a bull and a bear market in between each halving. And it goes along with the election cycle, and it goes along with the global liquidity cycle. It goes along with the stock market. It's all correlated. It's all integrated. And Satoshi, I believe, did this on purpose. So this election year, probably going to see the stock market moving up. And that means that Bitcoin is likely going to hit that parabolic curvature somewhere after the halving. And then leading into the second half of 2025, that's where we need to be getting out of the market. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe. And if you guys want to see further breakdowns on this profit-taking schedule, and if you guys want to see what altcoins I'm buying, join the Patreon. You can do 16% discount by doing the annual membership. And remember, the altcoin cycle kicks off after the halving because all of the focus is on Bitcoin going into the halving. But once the halving is over, the narrative shifts to altcoins. That's where the altcoins can start to shine. That's where people aren't so just focused on Bitcoin. And that's why the altcoins haven't really started to move, probably as much as you guys have wanted them to, is because we had the ETF narrative. Now we have the halving narrative. But after the halving, the narrative shifts to altcoins. Bitcoin will continue to perform well, but that's where the altcoins really shine. And that's what we're preparing for in the Patreon. So be sure to sign up. Prices do go up as more people join because we like to limit the amount of people, because by the time the cycle is hitting its peak, it just gets overwhelming in the chat rooms. So we're going to be, doing some crowd control, but these are really low prices, relatively speaking, compared to what they become in the bull market towards the end of the bull market. So you can lock this in now for a lifetime. This price, you can lock it in right now and you'll have it for as long as you want. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all in the next one.